Hey team, and welcome back to another video in our Astrological Magical Elections video series. Thank you all so much for being here, and today we are going to talk about some magical election opportunities that we're going to have to pick up between our Virgo New Moon on September 14th and our Aries Full Moon on September 28th. So some of you may have noticed that we did not have a magical elections video for the Pisces full moon on August 30th, and that was because I was sick. So I really appreciate you guys letting me cash in my sick days and for just sort of overall being patient with me as I got better, and I'm still working on kind of getting caught up on everything, but we're going to get kind of back on track with our magical elections videos at least, and everything else we'll have to sort out. Another big announcement is I have kittens. I know. Who would have thought that I would have more? I would have more cats. Who would have thought this would happen? Who could have seen this coming? What a development. This is Tango, and this is Cinnamon Swirl, and they have a sister who is not here in the room with me right now. I don't know where she went, but they are here. They're adorable, and they're gonna be causing trouble all over the place. But alright, so let's kind of talk about what it is that we're actually dealing with, because unfortunately, even though we're kind of back on track for doing our elections videos, we don't have a whole lot of elections to talk about, and that is because we have a lot of planets that are still not super cooperating with us in the way that we would normally like them to. So, for instance, we have, Saturn and Jupiter both retrograde right now, which is, fine, it happens, once a year for a while, but it's really unfortunate when they're both retrograde together, because then that means that, the signs... Oh, Bubbles is also here. I'm sorry, Bubbles. Bubbles is also here. But when Jupiter and Saturn are retrograde, that means that we sort of lose access to Capricorn and Aquarius, Saturn sign, and also Sagittarius and Pisces, Jupiter signs. That's like 4 signs of the zodiac that are already out, and it sucks that they're all just kind of like in one segment together. One follows after another, and that's a large part of the zodiac that we can't use for like the ascendant sign or things like that, and not even counting like the two planets that the moon can't really apply to now as far as being able to be used for a talisman. And then we get into like the issue with Mars. While Mars isn't retrograde right now, we do have a kind of a weird situation where Mars is close to the node, and I never really feel like the nodes affect the planets very much. I feel like it's more of a luminary kind of thing, but I know that a lot of people get very uncomfortable when planets get close to the nodes, so I tend to kind of shy away from sharing those elections like a little bit more publicly, whereas I may recommend them more privately to individuals. So Mars is another one that's kind of gonna have to sit out a little bit, and especially if it's a planet the moon is going to apply to, we're gonna have to not deal with it. But that also means that utilizing Aries and Scorpio ascendants becomes a little bit more difficult. So, all that to say that things are weird and tough right now, but we are able to squeeze out a little bit of good stuff with it, and we're gonna talk about that. We do have our waxing moon happening right now, from our new moon to our full moon, which gives us some good sort of groundwork for magic that is meant to augment and grow and gain. So hopefully we're going to be able to pull some tricks out of here, which we are going to talk about. We only have a handful of elections to talk about, but let's go ahead and dive on into it. Okay, here she is. I found her. Here's June. Cute little tortie. Okay, go play. So the annoying part about today's video is that we don't have that many elections, but there's also not a lot of overlap between elections for different locations. So different places kind of have their own little elections that are different from everybody else's, which is kind of annoying. But we're going to just dive on into it. So our first election opportunity is going to be on September 16th at 8:49 a.m. This is going to be a North American exclusive, and it's going to be for a fixed star talisman for Algorab. So Algorab is a fixed star that is a little bit more difficult energy to get a hold of than some of the other fixed stars. It's a little bit more kind of like aggressive and a little bit uncomfortable. And for Algorab, it's a star that is primarily used to increase the caloric humor, so it can be very useful for people who need more color in their life, or need to sort of regulate color a little bit more, particularly for people who are maybe like predominantly phlegmatic, are suffering from kind of like doormat syndrome, or have difficulty kind of standing up for themselves, or having themselves having their concerns or needs voiced and understood and respected by others. It can also be useful for people who kind of struggle with like chronic fatigue kind of issues. Algorab increases boldness and self-esteem, and it also has a like protective influence against illnesses, spirits, and negative energy in general. So it is a star that, even though it is a bit more like on the aggressive side, it is useful. It has a lot of positive, potentially positive spins that we can utilize it for. So I definitely recommend Algorab a lot for people who are wanting to kind of who are kind of like wanting to step up for themselves and be a little bit more of their own advocates, and have those moments where they kind of realize, sometimes it is okay to push back and say, of course, no to things, or make sure that what you need is heard and done, or if you just need like those self-esteem or like courage boosts, or if you just want to go to it for like the health and like the protective health aspect of it, or the protection from like negative energy kind of stuff. In a lot of ways, Algorab is a bit more edgy Vega talisman, but when we don't have good Vega options, Algorab is a great star to go to when we need it. Oh, the other thing too is that Algorab is a star that has a tendency to cause nightmares. So if you if you make a talisman and you start to have nightmares, that's just kind of what Algorab does. That's one of its side effects. But taking a look at our election, we've got 13 degrees Libra on the ascendant, which is the degree of the star Algorab, and we have the moon on the ascendant applying a conjunction with Mars. And normally we would avoid conjunctions with Mars in many different electional contexts. We would especially avoid conjunctions with Mars on the ascendant. Like, that sounds terrifying. But Mars is one of the two planets, the other being Saturn, that Algorab is associated with. Algorab is said to be of the nature of Mars and Saturn. So we want this Mars contact. This Mars contact is more welcome here because it's more in tune, or similar. It's more similar to the energy of Algorab that we want to bring into the talisman that we are making. So normally we would avoid it, but because it's on brand, we'll say Mars here is welcome. The ruler of the first house is Venus, here in Leo, can join the 11th house cusp. Venus isn't afflicted by Mars. They're in a nice like sextile aspect. She's too far away from the opposition of Saturn to worry about. And the only kind of thing she has going for her is this like square aspect with Jupiter, which is fine. But yeah, all in all, it's a good election. It's far enough away from the moon. I'm sorry, the moon and Mars are far enough away from the node down here to not really be a concern. So if that's something that you're worried about, I don't think it's going to be a problem. And everything that needs to be a little bit more safe is safe, which is the most that we could ask for. And we haven't had an Algorab talisman in a long time, so this could be a fun opportunity to pick up for anybody thinking about it. And it's always really fun when we have these connections between like the moon, a star, and a planet that the stars are the nature of, kind of all happening by conjunction in the same degree, because it doesn't happen very often. So it's just nice to be able to take advantage of, because I don't think we're going to have a good opportunity for like a Mars Moon conjoined Antares later on in the year. I don't think a good opportunity arises itself for that, which is really unfortunate. But we can have Algorab, so have Algorab. Why not? Why not? So our second electional opportunity is going to be an exclusive for Western Europe and Northern Africa, and this is going to be on September 20th at 6:07 in the morning, and it's going to be an opportunity for a 19th Lunar Mansion talisman. The 19th Lunar Mansion is a really nice mansion. It is very focused on sexual health, particularly female sexual health, but also like conception and protection during childbirth. And magical safeguarding as well. So there's a lot there. And so whether it's, needing help to like, whether it's needing help like regulating menstruation or helping to conceive a child, I wouldn't use waxing moon 19th lunar mansions for contraception. That would be something that you would want to use in the waning moon, but it is also something that this mansion can do. Or if you're just kind of more interested in it from the magical protection and kind of veiling or shielding aspect of it, 19th lunar mansion is really great to have. Looking at our election here, we've got the moon placed in the 19th mansion in the 3rd house, which is her house of joy, and she's applying the sextile to the sun in Virgo. And, sextiles or connections with the moon and the sun are always really nice. I like them a lot, especially for anything health-related or, like, magical protection-related. The sun really comes through very well for that. At the same time, we'll have Mercury as the ruler of the 1st house in the 1st house, and this is kind of where I didn't kind of realize this at first when I was making the list, but now I kind of see that there is a kind of a wider opposition between Saturn and Mercury. 7 degrees I think is fine, especially with Mercury speeding past it, to where I'm not sure that this is something that we have to worry about. But it's something, if it is something that concerns you, I get it, and I think that that's valid to consider. One thing that I was really hoping that I would be able to do was to get the ascendant far enough to where I could get the ascendant trine with Jupiter to kind of help balance it out and get a little bit more stability on it. But there's not a way for me to be able to do that and to keep Mercury good on the ascendant. Mercury would have to fall into the 12th house. And I don't do rulers of that would make it worse. That would make it worse. But having the sun in the first house is also another sort of mitigating factor here. So I like that as well. So there was parts of this that I sort of overlooked, this opposition, even though it's 7 degrees away. I could still see it causing some kind of trepidation for people who are maybe looking at it. So kind of keep that in mind and make that choice for yourself if you want to move forward with it. I think it's fine. 7 degrees is a good distance between these two planets, and Mercury is moving quickly to get away from it. And the sun is in the first house as well. The moon is unafflicted. And it's a good connection to have right now. So 19th Lunar Mansion, Western Europe and Northern Africa. Our next electional opportunity is going to be our one and only Australian chart, and it's going to be for the 18th Lunar Mansion. The 18th Lunar Mansion is another very health-focused one. It is particularly useful for illnesses of the stomach, but can be used kind of, for any kind of health concern that you might have. It is particularly useful for individuals who are sick, like are actively ill, and want to be healed, rather than, so my meaning here is that it's not really for like preventative medicine. It's definitely for like, oh, there's a problem, let me get in there and fix it. I don't recommend keeping the 18th Lunar Mansion past its use. So like once the illness has cleared itself, be done with the 18th Lunar Mansion. Don't hold on to it. But the 18th Lunar Mansion is very helpful for getting in there, getting what needs to be gotten and getting it out, and helping the body to kind of get that in that foreign thing that it's reacting to out, so that it can, kind of regain its normal kind of homeostasis and health level. But taking a look at the election chart for itself, we've got the moon in the 18th. No, she's not. Yes, no, yeah, that's right, 18th. I got confused. We have the moon, it's like, she's at 19 degrees Scorpio, I got confused. We have the moon in the 18th Lunar Mansion, and she's in the 3rd house, her house of joy, and she is connecting to that sextile of the sun in Virgo in the 1st house, which I really enjoy. So this chart is like kind of happening at the same time as the 19th Lunar Mansion talisman well, I guess it's not happening at the same time, the moon would be in the 19th Lunar Mansion. But this chart is happening like just a bit before the Western Europeans' 19th Lunar Mansion chart. So that's kind of fun. But this is sort of like the 18th Lunar Mansion. Australia gets the 18th Lunar Mansion, and then Western Europe gets the 19th Lunar Mansion, and North America gets nothing. they get nothing. But anyway, so looking at our election, we've got the moon in the 18th mansion. She's in the 3rd house. She's applying the sextile to the sun, which is very useful for health-oriented talismans. We're going to have the sun as the ruler of the 1st house hanging out here, while Venus, a benefic planet, is going to be on the ascendant to help stabilize it. The sun, the ascendant, and the moon are unafflicted by Saturn or Mars, who could get in the way of this, which is great. And so all in all, we've got, this is actually a pretty nice 18th Lunar Mansion talisman for kind of what we're going through with all the kind of the weird stuff that we're going through right now, especially to get Venus on the ascendant here to help balance it out more positively. Balance it out is not really a great term. I don't know why I said that exactly. There's not like a negative really for Venus to like combat or like to be put up against. So all in all, it's really great. It would have been kind of fun had I been able to get the moon at like 15 degrees of Scorpio, so she could have been like caught between like the opposition of Jupiter and the square of Venus, and kind of been like venerated. That would have been, I don't know if better is the right word, but would have been fun. That's the word that I would use. But the sextile to the sun is, I think, really good. Like it's really solid as well. So take a look at this chart, see if you can make it work. See if you can be up at 4:40 in the morning, Australia, to see if you can get some 18th Lunar Mansion goodness. So our next election opportunity is going to be for a Mercury planetary talisman, and these are exceedingly rare to get. It's very difficult to get Mercury planetary talismans, mostly because of Mercury's relationship with the sun, to where it can never be more than a sign away, like 28, 27 degrees. So we often have to struggle with Mercury being combust in signs that it does well in, which isn't great and not very useful for talismans. And then at the same time, Mercury moves through these signs so quickly that normally a planet would get at least 7 aspects with the moon while it's in a sign. It would get its first conjunction, the sextile, the trine, the square, the opposition, and then the trine, square, sextile as it goes through. And we may or may not get a follow-up conjunction. That's normally how it works with like the Sun and Venus. That we tend to get those. But since Mercury moves so quickly, we usually only get like 5 moon aspects, and not all of those are great. So we might get like 3 squares in opposition, which means we only have like two sextiles or like 2 trines, a trine, and a sextile to work with. So our options are severely limited with Mercury because it goes so quickly, and because it can be close enough to the Sun to make it not a useful talisman. But thankfully, we have everything here that we need to make it work. This is something that we're going to find in North America and Western Europe. Unfortunately, Australia will not be able to get this election. But so if you know somebody if you have a friend in Australia, make them an extra, make them a spare. Just come on, be nice. We have to share sometimes. But taking a look at our election for the North American continent, this is going to occur on September 23rd at 5:57 a.m. Excuse me. And here we're going to have, when we're making planetary talismans, we have a kind of a checklist of things we want to have. We want the planet that we're making the talisman for to be in some form of dignity. Here we have Mercury in Virgo, which is its sign of both domicile and exaltation, so that checks out. We want the planet to then be in an angular house, particularly on the ascendant or the midheaven. And we do have Mercury on the ascendant, which is great. We want the moon to be applying to that planet immediately, and we do have the moon applying a nice trine with Mercury in 4 degrees with no planet in the middle of it. And finally, we'll want it to take place during Mercury's day or Mercury's hour or both. And this will take place during Mercury's hour. So we have everything that we need here, and then we just need to make sure that we don't have anything that we don't want. And that usually comes down to like, the planet being combust, the planet being retrograde, which is not obviously the issue here. Making sure that Saturn and Mars are not involved in any negative way. So there's no bad aspect from Mars to the ascendant or Mercury. The opposition from Saturn is 11 degrees away, so very far enough away to not worry about. Excuse me. And if you wanted, we can even say that we have a nice little bonus here with the Jupiter trine to the ascendant, which helps to kind of like stabilize it a little bit more, brings a little bit more benefic energy into it. But we don't even really need that because there's not a negative counterbalance here that we need to plan for. So just a really great, it's a Mercury planetary talisman election that works, that hits all of our boxes, that's not afflicted by anything. And yeah, I mean, they're always really rare to find. And they're events when they do, because they don't happen all that often. So take it, share with your Australian friends, have fun. Now, the Western Europe and Northern African version is going to be very, very similar to the North American version. It's going to be September 23rd at 6:07 in the morning. We're going to keep that, Virgo rising, Mercury in Virgo. The only real difference here is that the moon is going to be still applying the trine with Mercury, but now 8 degrees away instead of 4 degrees away. So it's a little bit further, but we still don't have anything interfering with it. The Mercury trine is the next aspect the moon will make, and the planets are all unafflicted. So it all works out fine. The moon is just a little bit further away, which isn't that big of a deal. It's still clearly with an orb, and there's not another planet interfering with it, so it all works out. So go Western Europe, North Africa, and make Mercury talismans to share with your Australian friends. Please don't leave Australia out of this. Or I guess share your talismans online and tag your Australian friends with like nana nana boo boo. Look what I have that you can't have. That's mature. It's very helpful. It's very helpful, y'all. And then our final election opportunity is going to be another North American exclusive, and this is going to be for the 24th Lunar Mansion. The 24th Lunar Mansion is a really nice mansion. It is one that is primarily associated with like multiplicity and increasing. The tradition tells us specifically the increasing of livestock is what it's about, so like increasing the herd. But of course we can take that and use it in all kinds of ways to multiply anything, like to multiply, whatever we want, usually for those kind of growth-oriented things, especially with the moon waxing. What I usually recommend for people is to use the 24th Lunar Mansion for like financial gain, because there is sort of that association. A lot of times, anytime we're talking about like agriculture or like husbandry, animal husbandry in these traditional texts, it is something that we can directly relate to like livelihood and finances, because this is what a lot of people did. Like agriculture was how people made their living, how people fed their families, how people like had things to trade for other things that they might need. A lot of us aren't involved in that anymore, but we are involved in like commerce and trade. So I think the connections, or like the analogy, I guess, works out. The transferring the transferring property here, I think works out. So what I usually recommend for people is to like sacrifice like a $5 bill or a $20 bill or whatever to use as the talisman itself. Oh, I'm sorry, hit my microphone. To use as the talisman itself, because the Picotrix tells us that the 24th Lunar Mansion best works by being made in a material associated with what you want to multiply. So like the text tells us to make the 24th Lunar Mansion, to carve it into like a ram's horn if you want to increase your sheep herd, or like a bull's horn if you want to increase your cow herd, kind of a thing. So if you make the 24th Lunar Mansion on like, you know, a $5 bill, you can increase your $5 bills. So that's that. You just work with that, and you can kind of use that for anything that you want to like help collect more of, or increase or anything like that. It's just money tends to be the easiest way to measure that and to see that. But if there's something like more specifically that you want, yeah, absolutely, you can just, you know, use one to make the 24th Lunar Mansion in. The 24th Lunar Mansion can also be used for conception. There is that part too. It is very much like a birth-oriented talisman. So if you're trying to have a baby, struggling with fertility, the 24th Lunar Mansion can also help with that. Taking a look at our election for this, it's going to take place on September 24th at 21:15, so just a little bit after 9 o'clock at night. I'm surprised. Like, what? An election that I don't have to like wake up early for? Or is this real life? And here we're going to have the moon in the 24th mansion conjoin the midheaven. She's going to be applying the super tight trine with the sun. So I say this, people who are in Mountain and Pacific times may not be able to do this talisman, because the moon sun connection here is really strong and like really what we're looking for. After this, the moon applies to a square with Jupiter. I wouldn't hate that, except that Jupiter is retrograde, so I kind of hate it. So if you are in, if when you look at this chart and you see the moon is past the trine with the sun, we're too far gone. What you could maybe try to do is back it up some to see if we can't get the moon, like get like an early Taurus ascendant, to see if that doesn't give you some more room to make the moon apply to the sun. But you don't really want to go into an Aries ascendant, so you don't have super far to go back, which may not help a lot. So just kind of be mindful of that. Generally we would want the moon to be right on the midheaven, but if we need it to, we can pull it back to try to see if we can get this trine with the sun to be to work, rather than applying the square with Jupiter. But Jupiter does help us out in this chart, because it is on the ascendant, and bringing that sort of benefic Jupiter and Taurus to it will help bring us some more, like Jupiter's all about stability and growth. So having kind of that atmosphere, that environment for growth to happen in, is something that Jupiter helps us out with a lot. The ruler of the first house is going to be Venus down here in Leo. Venus is unafflicted by Mars or Saturn. She's not retrograde or combustor in the 12th house, so she's doing just fine. The moon is similarly doing just fine. So just a good chart to go for. And we haven't had a 24th Lunar Mansion talisman in a while. I don't remember. I don't know why we haven't, but I don't feel like we've had one for a while. So always really nice to be able to lean into that when this opportunity opens itself up. But alrighty, everybody, thank you all so much for being here and for watching. It's good to be back after being sick for a bit. Hopefully there's something in these elections that you can use. I need everybody to circle and stamp and highlight and set reminders for September 23rd, because Mercury talismans aren't something that pop along every now and again. And that's a pretty good one. So at least if none of the other talismans seemed like something that you were interested in or could utilize, Mercury planetary talisman is very flexible and rare enough to be something to pursue if maybe you haven't done, if a talisman hasn't spoken to you recently about something that you need to do. Mercury's a good one to have on board, because they're rare. They're hard to get a hold of when you need them. But I wanted to say a special thank you to my patrons. I really appreciate y'all being here. And if you're interested in supporting the channel and helping me feed these kittens who like noped out the second they could, look into the Patreon and all of its bonuses and goodies that it offers, whether that's an introductory mini course to astrological magic that is 6 hours long, or talismanic goodies every season, or even just our community of Discord and office hours. Stop by and check that out. And I will see you guys again on our Aries Full Moon.